Transmission is rare. It requires closer proximity and contact with bodily fluids or saliva droplets. And the window of contagious transmission before symptoms appear, it is also thought to be quite short.
Now we're just getting some news coming in. Mr. Keir Starmer has told a meeting of his cabinet in the last hour that he is staying put in his role. Starmer saying that the country expects us to get on with governing, and that is what he is doing, and that's what we must do as a cabinet. Starmer saying that the Labour Party has a process for challenging a leader, and that has not been triggered. It comes, though, as Keir Starmer, the first member of his government, as he faced pressure to step down following those losses, of course, in the local elections at the end of last week. In communities and local government ministers stepped down, urging Starmer to do the right thing for the country and set a timetable to step aside.
Day after attempting to reset his prime ministership with a make-or-break speech, it appears Keir Starmer's future in that job remains on shaky ground. Over 70 Labour MPs have called on him to step down, unconvinced he's the right person to lead the party after last week's dismal election results.
We will be judged on actions and not just our words. I'm proud of our Labour values, but they're not enough if we do not have a plan to put them into practice. It's no good acknowledging the mistakes if they're not put right. It's clear that what we're doing isn't working and it needs to change.
British media are reporting senior cabinet ministers are advising the Prime Minister to announce a plan for his exit. They include the current Deputy Prime Minister and the country's Interior Minister. Out on the streets of the British capital, meanwhile, Londoners too think Starmer won't last.
Well, there seems to be a lot of pressure on him at the moment from all angles, so he probably won't survive.
I think he's on a sticky wicket, and it looks like the Labour MPs maybe want him out.
She's definitely going. He won't stay. I think he might survive the week.
Keir Starmer's job has been in jeopardy after it emerged he failed to heed warnings not to appoint Peter Mandelson, UK ambassador to the United States, over his links with Jeffrey Epstein. While the British Prime Minister started the week saying he'd prove his doubters wrong, it's unlikely he'll get to make good on his promise, with mounting pressure from within Labour for him to go.
Now, it's not latest counteroffer from Iran, which went on to say its military stands ready to respond to any act of aggression. The rhetoric really dashing any hope that a deal can quickly be negotiated to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, claim a complete victory over Iran.
Unbelievably weak, I would say. I would call it the weakest right now. After reading the piece of garbage they sent us, I didn't even finish reading it. They said, I'm not going to waste my time reading it. I would say it's one of the weakest right now. It's life support. They understand these are all medical people. Dr. Oz, life support is not a good thing. Do you agree?
Bad prognostic.
I would say the ceasefire is on massive life support, where the doctor walks in and says, sir, your loved one has approximately a 1% chance of living.
Now, these Minab, where a school was hit, 157 female students, along with 21 teachers and staff members, were killed. Well, France 24's
once studied here, played here, and dreamed of their futures. But during the first few hours of the US-Israel war with Iran, a deadly strike on the school killed 155 people, including 120 children. Now, amid the rubble, there are memorials to the dead.
I came here as soon as it happened. Half of the school had been destroyed, and from the other half, huge columns of smoke and flames were rising. They told us, your children have been taken to the hospital, but we could see their remains scattered everywhere.
For these former students, visiting the bomb site sparks a lot of memories. Zainab and Zara both attended primary school here, but switched to another school to continue their middle school education. They can remember the friends they made here and the dedication of their teachers for working in such a remote area.
Every day I come here and relive my memories, how we played and studied here.
I still can't believe they bombed my school.
The bomb site has become a kind of shrine, visited by Iranians from all over the country.
They were killed for absolutely no reason. It's a real tragedy.
The victims of the bombing were buried in this cemetery, dubbed the Garden of the Martyrs in Minab. It's become a gathering place for the city's residents. US President Donald Trump initially denied all responsibility for the attack, but according to US media, a preliminary investigation by the American military found that the US was behind the Tomahawk strike, which was a result of a targeting mistake, making it one of the most devastating military errors in recent decades.
The direction he least expected, his former press secretary coming out and describing Zelensky, the real Zelensky, the man behind the cameras. She also says his associates were mired in corruption.
She's playing this poor guy in this cheap sweater. He is rich, obviously. Look, I don't know where the money goes, but I was meeting one veteran of politics who has known Zelensky for dozens of years, and the first thing he asks me, where is the money? I'm like, what? He's like, I know Zelensky for many years. He has never lifted a finger for free. He would never do anything for free. I know that there are a lot of people in his government and in his vertical of power who want peace. And I didn't want to put on him.
Israel's actions in the Middle East grows among some member states. However, foreign ministers failed to agree on stronger measures to pressure Israel, like curbing trade ties. The Israeli foreign minister condemns the new sanctions, asserting that Jews have the right to settle in the West Bank.
The European Union has chosen in an arbitrary and political manner to impose sanctions on Israeli citizens and entities because of their political views and without any basis.
The occupied West Bank has been gripped by almost daily violence involving Israeli troops and settlers since the start of the war in Gaza in October 2023, and there's been a surge in deadly settler attacks since the start of the Iran war at the end of February. According to the United Nations, more than 40 Palestinians have been killed since the start of the year, while in 2025, expansion of Israeli settlements reached its highest level since the UN began tracking data.
Zelensky as he was. It was the first signal last year for him that he has to leave and run for his life as soon as possible. Now it's going to be a crumbling side effects for him, and basically more and more staggering investigation cases, not just on Yermak, him personally, but leading to Zelensky himself. So this is the reality that the Key regime is facing. They thought they had the West in their pockets, but the West is playing them, like fish in muddy waters. That's what they're leading Zelensky into, and then they're going to take him out. So this is what the reality is for the Key regime. The next step is criminal actions, not just against Yermak and the Lindage and people surrounding Zelensky who are responsible for the money laundering and political sphere and influence, but directly, the next step is Zelensky himself. It's more obvious than ever that Zelensky is next, and there are recordings and information on his corruption schemes and scandals throughout, not just some houses and real estate outside of Kiev, but real estate throughout the world, and billions and tens of millions of dollars schemed for Western back support to Ukraine.
Is interesting though is the actress Demi Moore, who caused such acclaim a couple of years ago here on the Canquisette with The Substance. She is going to be part of the jury, so very much adding her weight and knowledge of cinema to the jury this year.
Macron arrived in Kenya on his charm offensive on Sunday for a 3-day visit, and it comes as Paris is increasingly receiving a cold shoulder from a range of African countries, with military bases shut down and the plug pulled on its media outlets. The French president already made headlines at the start of his trip when he said that he no longer wants Paris to consider the continent as its backyard. Chairman and founder of the PLO Lumumba Foundation said that the relationship between Kenya and France is parasitic rather than symbiotic.
I request that you remain seated. And sees is arrogance. The kind of arrogance that has informed French treatment of African countries since the 1940s. You can actually look at what is happening in Nairobi today as you would what happened in Brazzaville in 1944 with Charles de Gaulle, and also what happened in Paris in 1973 with Georges Pompidou. The French saying with their mouths what they do not believe in their hearts, because what they are trying to do is to compensate the losses that they have suffered in the Sahel region, in Mali, in Burkina Faso, in Niger, and in Senegal. And that is why in Kenya, very quickly, they entered into a military pact. And they are camouflaging that by saying, we are no longer the same France. France remains the same. It may wear a different mask, but the reality is they want to dominate African continent, and they want to be the major domo in Africa from the European Union. And the sooner Africa realizes that, the safer Africa is.
All right, now the summit wraps up on Tuesday.
More than ever before now. Important topic to mention, we were all members in the waiting room before being member states. So,
okay. And Yuri, wrap up. How important is it to keep that door open, to give people the perspective, countries the perspective of joining the EU?
In my opinion, it's really important, because I think that EU is a living organism. And living organism means that we must develop, we must have the growth. And the opposite way is that we are decreasing. And of course the problem, I think, for the EU is at the moment that the large enlargement was 13 years ago, and it was Croatia. But on the other hand, like Marta said, I agree that the most this kind of influential tool what we have on our hands actually enlargement policy. I come from a small country, from Estonia. We joined the EU 2004, 22 years ago. And I would like to say that it has been this kind of totally successful story for us. I visited 1 week ago London in UK, and I met lots of different politicians and also NGOs and so on. And more than 60 or even 65% of the population at the moment regret this decision about the Brexit. And actually, I think it shows quite clearly what is EU value here and how important to be the member of this family.
Well, perhaps we'll to the UK later in the show, but Yuri, I'll stay with you if it's possible and talk about Ukraine. A lot of positive noises coming from the EU about membership for Ukraine, but the Prime Minister of Croatia, the last country to join the EU, as you mentioned there, saying it's not realistic as things stand. How can the EU encourage Ukraine without disappointing Ukraine?
Good question. On the one hand, I agree what Plenkovic said, that if when the war is continued, I think it's quite hard to imagine that Ukraine will be member. But I think what is our role today, much stronger and deeper role and much more active role, what we are doing is to give the money, to give the all kind of support. Also, the support is, when we are talking to security and defense, military support to them, that Ukraine will win this war. And that is the most important thing. Of course, all the countries, I think, here, they could help to make these different reforms. What is important to have to fulfill the conditions. And we have one positive momentum more. What happened in Budapest, in Hungary. I think now it's smart to use this momentum.
Okay. Staying on the topic of Ukraine, Marta, the accelerated process for Ukraine has perhaps created some jealousies for other countries and frictions from other candidate countries, potentially in the West Balkans. You yourself have been visiting Serbia, amongst others, and on that visit you called for rule of law to be respected as one of the conditions for continued accession talks. How do you see those efforts and the progress being made in Belgrade?
Look, this is very important because being in the waiting room is not being there seated. It is to implement reforms, and the implementation phase is very important to comply with the accession criteria. And what we see in some of our countries that are candidate countries is that during the last years, it's true that European Union didn't put too much effort in enlargement process because other priorities were in the agenda, namely COVID and the crisis of Ukraine, etc. But it is also true that some of those candidate states didn't improve enough. But in Serbia, something different happened. We see that they are making an effort regarding, for instance, economic criteria and progressing on that part of the process. But regarding human rights, we have huge problems there. I've been in Serbia with colleagues last January because we needed to see, to assess, to talk, to discuss on the ground the implementation.
Yeah, because they do have the best plan ever. It's a very simple plan. I don't know why you don't say it like it is. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
For the time being, the ceasefire remains in place.
You know, it's unbelievably weak. I would call it the weakest right now. After reading a piece of garbage they sent us, I didn't even finish reading it. They said, I'm not going to waste my time reading it. No, I would say it's one of the weakest right now. It's on life support.
Criteria.
If I just could add, I think that the disappointment aspect is actually really important for the EU. If we are waiting, then it is actually the problem for these countries and these peoples. I am 100% agree that we must open the doors for the Western Balkans, if we are talking about the Montenegro or the North Macedonia and so on. But at the same time, it's the question today on the table about what is the results will be in Iceland. What will be the results, for example, negotiations between the EU and Moldova, Ukraine? And what I would like to say at the moment, on the one hand, we know all these criteria about democracy, rule of law, and media freedom. But I think more and more is important that these countries who are joining for the EU, it's important that we are sharing on the ground for the same values about the foreign policy.
Situation deteriorates by the hour. Another war will push the entire global economy over the cliff and into a Great Depression. And the world will wonder, why did we have to suffer because of Trump, Netanyahu, and the genocidal Zionist regime?
Negotiations 2004, 10 countries, and also Estonia, 10 countries joined the EU, and I think we must show also this possibility at the moment that EU is ready, and that is actually the maybe is a more difficult question. Is the EU ready to open the doors for the new candidate countries? And like I said before, I think the momentum today, we have this momentum today here.
Perhaps one final question, Marta, if it's okay with you. Talking about momentum, there's a reverse momentum, if you will, when it comes to the question of the United Kingdom, a decade on from the Brexit referendum. How do you perceive the potential reset that wants to be going on between London and Brussels, given, of course, the popularity of rejoining in the polls the EU in the United Kingdom?
It would be a wonderful, fantastic opportunity. We cannot forget that unexpected things happen. For instance, Armenia, talking about a totally different country, Armenia approved the law mentioning that the country wants to become a candidate country. So why cannot we not expect that United Kingdom would have again a status of member state? This seems impossible, but on the eve of Brexit, nobody would think that Brexit would be approved. But we also need to have a clear understanding that there are different sorts of relations with the European Union. And being a member state is one of them, but we can have other relations, partnerships, close engagement relations. So what United Kingdom perhaps is not able to do the reverse process right now, but we need to be able to accept other possibilities.
You're right, that's...
Strikes on the area are clear to see. Over the weekend, 39 people were killed, with many others left wounded. RT Steve Sweeney has more on this.
Into focus on France 24.
Kafar Roumain, Toul, Douar and Deir Zorani were among the places struck, not simply dots on a map, but people's homes and memories, their land now reduced to rubble. The scale is now so relentless it's hard to keep up. On Monday morning, evacuation orders were issued for 7 more villages, bringing the total to 84 since the so-called ceasefire came into effect in April. As each hour passes, another strike and the death toll rises again. More than 2,800 people have now been killed since March the 2nd. Not simply statistics, but people who loved and were loved, who had jobs, families, and their whole lives ahead of them. More than 100 of that grim total are health workers, those who dedicated their lives to serving others. The latest, Ali Rida al-Basuli and Sharif Ahmad Krika were killed after their ambulances were targeted on Sunday in 2 separate incidents. On Saturday, 3 generations of one family were killed in a strike in Saksakia. Jana Faz and her baby daughter Mariam, Kadir Awada and her sons Yusuf and Hani Faz, Hani's wife Rula Nasruddin and their children Mohammed, Ali and Fatima. These are the names behind the statistics.
I went to this session whereby it's like a sort of a garden, and then this sound that is being made by some sticks that are only kicking on metallic stuff. The only sound is making you're not hearing words. It's not making like a when you just sit there. Like you are going to go bro, but you travel it's like you travel through your brain, your whole body relaxes. Yeah. Actually, some hotels have started embedding this in the therapeutical moments, like even in massage. They just play with the wordless activities in toilets as well. I've been to this hotel, and then there's just a nice sound in the toilet. See that, the elevator sound and the toilets, actually really good. It's very important. After Did You Know, we dive into showbiz. This time around, we wanted to take you guys into R&B, which is something or a genre that is loved by so many people. Okay, let's dive into the showbiz section. We'll do it.
Bring you a special report as the France 24.
So I get a call from Tom Home, and he didn't like it, but everyone else liked it. I wanted to change the name of ICE.
Risk is low, and this is not another COVID. But even if health officials are repeatedly stating that the hantavirus's contagion rate is lower than COVID, many fear that the cases could still signal a return to COVID-like safety precautions for the general public. But is that likely? That's the one.
Everyone, protective gear, contact tracing, fear and anxiety. The hantavirus evokes for many the not-so-distant past, that of the COVID pandemic, with its lockdown, sanitary measures, and mask requirements. But will we all need to be wearing FFP2s again soon? This epidemiologist says it's not warranted right now.
We are not in a phase where the virus is spreading throughout the population. We hope we won't reach that point. For the moment, there's only one case in France, and it's confined, you could say, to the Bichat hospital. So the issue concerns close contacts, and thus masks are to be given to those who are contacts of contacts.
Were masks to become mandatory again, France's health ministry says that it has a sufficient supply. Yet in a report last year by the nation's spending watchdog, the Cour des Comptes, it warned that COVID-era masks are either expired or expiring in 2026. There has been some renewal of some stocks, but the auditor says improvements are needed. As for home stocks of masks, individuals should double-check the expiration dates of theirs, just in case. But will such sanitation measures really be needed for the general public?
Israel makers
set for special tribunal. Middle East, one child killed each week on average in West Bank since January 2025, UN reports. News update and headlines. News update and headlines. Epstein Files. Epstein Files on display at new pop-up exhibit, or 3.5 million pages. United States, Southern California Mayor Ellen Wang resigned, will plead guilty to acting as agent for Chinese government. China, Taiwan. China says it opposes U.S. Army sale to Taiwan ahead of Trump visit. News update. Taiwan vote to strengthen cooperation with U.S. for defense. News update. Afghanistan, Pakistan. UN says 372 Afghan civilians killed in Pakistan conflict in 3 months. 7 killed in blast in North Pakistan market, police report in Pakistan. Malaysia search for 14 missing after migrant boat capsized, 23 rescued. Malaysia. New Zealand moves to hard lawsuit over climate damage. News update and headlines. News update and headlines. War in Ukraine. Kremlin says Russia has resumed Ukraine offensive after 3-day ceasefire. War in Ukraine. No specifics on ending Ukraine war despite recent Putin remarks, Kremlin reports. War in Ukraine. Russia strike kill 1 person in eastern Ukraine, regional authorities. Russia launches more than 200 drones as Ukraine truce expires. War in Ukraine. Russia army says it shot down 27 Ukrainian drones after truce expire. War in Ukraine. Zelensky meets with Palantir CEO in Kiev. War in Ukraine. United Kingdom. First UK junior minister resign, calling for PM Keir Starmer to quit. News update. PM Starmer tells cabinet he and Rabo will get on with government. Hantavirus. One quarantined Spain test positive for hantavirus, Spanish health ministry says. Hantavirus. WHO chief calls on country to follow advice on hantavirus. Hantavirus. WHO chief says work not over after hantavirus evacuation. European Union. EU reach provisional deal to address shortage of essential medicines.
I would call it the weakest right now. After reading a piece of garbage they sent us, I didn't even finish reading it. I said, I'm not going to waste my time reading it. I would say it's one of the weakest right now. It's on life support. They understand these are all medical people. Dr. Oz, life support is not a good thing. Do you agree? I would say the ceasefire is on massive life support, where the doctor walks in and says, sir, your loved one has approximately a 1% chance of living.
After blast, Mexico cancel plans. Football. Tottenham relegation fear remain after home draw with Leeds. Basketball. LeBron James Lakers eliminated from NBA playoff as Thunder series sweeps. News update and headlines. News update and headlines. Iran, United States. U.S. President Donald Trump warns ceasefire is on life support. Iran nuclear program. Iran could enrich uranium to weapon grade if attacked, lawmakers. Iran is execute man linked to Belarus militant group. Tasmin report. Israel-Lebanon. Israel strike kill 6 in South Lebanon, state media report. Iran-Lebanon Hezbollah chief say group will turn battlefield into hell for Israel. Hezbollah chief says group's weapon not part of negotiation with Israel. Israel reports accuses Hamas of systematic, widespread violence. Israel lawmakers set up special tribunal and allow news update and headlines. News update and headlines on this 12 May, Tuesday, 2026. That was some of news update today on 12th of May 2026. Thank you for your time.